Hey Central Virginia, are you concerned about the state of our local housing market and or your home value? We'll cover that today in your June 2025 housing market update. What is going on, party people? Today we're going to be addressing some of the concerns some of you may be having about our local housing market and or your home value, and or maybe you're planning on purchasing a home this year and you're a little bit concerned with everything that you've been hearing in the news. So we shared this stat last month, but a recent survey by Clever Real Estate revealed that 70% of Americans are concerned about a potential housing market crash, to be specific, in 2025. Additionally, 32% of those surveyed who said that they were planning a major purchase have said that they are now delaying that. Hopefully my wife is delaying any more purchases from Wayfair. I love you, sweetheart. But 32% are planning to delay that purchase. So what's interesting about this is that economist Business Insider recently said that economists who actually study the housing market conditions generally do not expect to crash in 2025 or beyond. So how can that be, you might ask yourself? Well, while inventory is up 30% year over year on a national scale, we are still 16% below pre-pandemic inventory levels. So inventory is rising. However, we still not have met the levels that we saw pre-pandemic. So we're still in a, generally speaking, we're still in a low inventory environment. In our very own Metro Richmond, this graphic tells it all. Looking at the new listings going back 10 years, as you can see, we're still in a very low inventory market, and it's simply Econ 101. There's simply not enough supply of homes for prices to crash. Now, we are seeing home price growth moderate on a national level. So growth, home price growth on a national level. As you can see, we went from 7% year over year growth in February 24 to 3.9% year over year growth in February of 25. So home prices are still appreciating. They are still growing. However, they're growing at now more moderate rates. That being said, in Central Virginia, so those were numbers on a national scale. In Central Virginia, we've continued to see price growth at a steady pace. As you might notice, prices stalled in late 2022, early 2023 for a few months, but other than that, prices have continued to climb. We're currently at 6.7% year over year growth, which is above the 3 to 4% kind of national 50-year average of what we've seen historically for home price growth. So we're still growing at a pretty good clip. All right, so now that we've talked about prices, you might be asking yourself, yeah, but Chris, but what about mortgage rates? So there's definitely been some volatility lately. That being said, rates have been somewhat stubborn in the high sixes. We've been kind of fluctuating anywhere from 6.7 to I think upwards of 7.1 in the last, since the beginning of 2024. The reason for that, the Federal Reserve has been reluctant to cut the federal funding rate, which is a large influencer of mortgage rates. And the reason for that is the Federal Reserve has a dual mandate from Congress. Their dual mandate is to maximize employment and to create stable prices for the American public. Regarding employment, unemployment has remained steady around 4%. So without a spike in unemployment, the Fed really isn't incentivized to lower rates and kind of rev up the financial engine, just because they view, 4% unemployment rates as kind of normal unemployment rates. And as far as prices go, inflation has been a little bit stubbornly above the Federal Reserve's target 2% inflation rate. So with unemployment in a good place, with inflation being somewhat stubborn above their target 2% rate, they really haven't been incentivized to cut the rates at all and kind of rev up the financial engine, even with pressure from the White House that we've seen. So all that being said, the consensus among major forecasters is that we will eventually see mortgage rates inch down. However, they are not really predicting any drastic cuts. Most predictors are predicting that we might get down into the low sixes, maybe end of 2026. So the 6 to 7% rates, or at least is what folks are predicting, is where we're going to be for probably the next year and a half. All right, so what does this all mean to you? So for my sellers, the getting is still good, right? We're still in a market where home prices are appreciating. We didn't necessarily cover this in the body of the market update, but the median percentage of asking price, basically how much sellers are getting, is still 100%. I want to say the median days on market is still 8 days. So the market is still cooking. It's not as crazy hot as it was during COVID, but we're still in a very healthy market. We're still seeing where sellers are doing very well in today's market. Secondly, with that being said, multiple offers are not a given. So we are still seeing multiple offers on certain properties in certain areas and certain price points, but I have encountered a number of sellers, would-be sellers, that just expect that, no matter what type of home they put out there, no matter what price they put on their property, they're going to receive multiple offers, and that's simply not the case in today's market. And then last but not least, and this is true always, but presentation equals price. So the better your home shows, the better it presents, the more money you're ultimately going to get, and the quicker that your property is going to sell. So investing in things like getting your home ready, getting it staged, making sure it shows well, making sure the paint color is right, making sure the flooring is right, all those things are all the more important now when buyers are not just handing money over hand over fist on every single property. The homes that present well, the homes that show well, are the ones that tend to be doing better in this market. For my buyers, if you're waiting for rates to drop, I hope you packed a lunch. As we showed with you, rates are projected to come down. They're not going to be coming down drastically. And oh, by the way, while you're waiting for rates to come down, prices are continuing to rise. So know that even if rates do drop, a percentage point, you could very well be buying at 6 to 7% higher prices in a year. Secondly, for my buyers, your first home is typically not your last home. So I've had a number of conversations with first-time home buyers recently, just reminding them that, hey, it's more important to get into the housing game than it is to get the perfect house as your first house. Realize that your first home is probably a 5 to 7 year home for most folks. Just get in the game, get into home ownership, start building some equity, stop paying, somebody else's mortgage, pay your own. And then, in 5 to 10 years, you can trade up into your quote unquote forever home, which by the way, there's no such thing. And then last but not least, rent your rate out. So I've had a number of folks that bought, and or refinanced during the COVID craze when rates were, in the threes, and they want to move, they need to move, they need more space, they need less space, whatever the situation is, but they're reluctant to let go of that rate, and for good reason, right? That's very good debt to have, is if you have a mortgage rate in somewhere in the 2s or 3s. I've encouraged a lot of those folks to go ahead and just keep that house and rent it out, right? As long as you have the ability to do that, you have the appetite to do that, that is a great way to build wealth. Hold on to that property, leave that mortgage in place, rent that property out, let somebody else pay it down. You move on, move into the house that works for you and your needs and your family, but keep that property, keep that debt long-term, as that's going to help you build wealth in the long run. So guys, that was your June or 2025 rather housing market update. Hope you found it insightful. If we can be of service to you for any of your real estate needs, reach out, shoot me a DM, call, text, email, throw a comment below. If you have any questions and concerns we didn't address, throw in the comments below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next month.